Well, let's head on with the details of those stories now. The Director General of Operations for the Ghana Police Service says the vehicle in which masked armed security operatives were conveyed to Bauleshi is not in the pool of vehicles owned by the police service. DCOP George Alex Mensah has been giving his account of event of the violence during the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election last month. His comment affirms Interior Minister's account yesterday when he also appeared before the Emil Short Commission of Inquiry probing the violence, but then it is in clear contradiction of the National Security Minister's account.
If I should tell you that the Commission has received evidence in this very room that those men, at least some of them, about 25 of them, were members of the SWAT team of the police, would you be surprised?
I'll be surprised.
Now, has the fact that they were using a police vehicle also come to your attention?
Yes, my lord.
Have you subsequently sought to investigate as to how they came across or they came by the vehicle?
No, my lord. What I've found out is that that vehicle is not part of the vehicles under my command.
Is there any reason for that belief?
Lord, the belief referring to?
I mean, you are very sure that that vehicle is not part of your fleet?
Yes, my lord.
Yes, and I'm asking you, what informs that? What makes you so sure?
Because I know the fleet of vehicles under the National Operations Department. And that vehicle is not part of it.
Very well. Could you give us specifics? What about that vehicle makes you say so confidently that it's not part of your fleet?
My lord, the National Operations Department has never used that kind of vehicle before. Never since I took over, I've never seen that vehicle at the National Operations Department.
If you say kind, are you referring to the make?
The make.
That's the Director General of Police Operations, DCOP Mensah there. Well, for her part, the Electoral Commission Chairperson, Jean Mensah, said the process was credible and peaceful and that no armed men attacked any of the polling stations. In fact, she said none of the reports she's received from all polling stations indicated there were armed men at the polling stations.
There was peace in the polling stations.
So, if I get you right, you are putting on record that as far as security is concerned, the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency by-election was peaceful.
As far as the polling stations are concerned, we are well aware that, there was violence erupted in the house of, the candidate of the National Democratic Congress. But I'm saying that as far as the polling stations, the 137 polling stations are concerned, there was no violence there and there was peace in the 137 polling stations. Of course, there was violence some 140 meters away from the polling station, and the gunshots could be heard in the neighborhood, including the area including the school. But what is interesting is that people around the area ran into the school where the polling station was, the cordoned area, to take cover. So I'm sure that it was some sort of a peace haven for them. They ran there to take cover, although you could hear the gunshot wounds. But people ran there to take cover. And our presiding officer had to protect the environment and their equipment and materials. So it brought polling to a halt for about 45 minutes. But thereafter, the voting continued.
So that's Jean Mensah, chairperson of the Electoral Commission, there with a categorical statement that there was no violence at the polling stations and that electoral processes were not affected by what happened. But in what looks like a sharp contradiction, she says that violence occurred in Bawaleshi and that it stalled voting there for about 45 minutes.
It affected it for close to 45 minutes because voting there came to a standstill.
Yes.
I also believe that the gunshots and so on and the stories carried out would have an effect on that police station in particular.
Could frighten some people.
Would frighten people from coming there.
Okay.
So after the Electoral Commission's chairperson gave her testimony, the next person was the Legon District Commander, Legon District Police Commander DSP Asari, who also gave his testimony. He began by saying that he was totally sidelined from the task force that monitored this by-election.
If I'm wrong, correct me. Is that until you are instructed by the regional commander, you don't play any role? Is that what you're saying?
My lord, that is not what I mean. But in this particular instance, I was of the view that the authorities, the regional command, would allow the normal system to operate. But this time round, it did not happen, to the extent that I complained that why is it that as a district officer, where a by-election is going to be held, I have been asked to stay aside. Said that my command car was taken away from me by the regional commander, that I should let my driver bring the pickup to Accra region.
That's DSP George Asari there, who is the East Legon District Commander, who talks about how he was asked to step aside and how other men were brought from the regional division, the regional command, to take over the operation or that monitoring of the by-election at Ayawaso West Wuogon. But then as the testimony went along, he was engaged by the members on the panel about how he managed the crime scene, as well as how persons or suspects who were injured were managed as well by him.
Did you take a statement from them?
I asked them to come to the police. They say they won't come. They say they won't come. We don't throw, in such situation, so many things happen. Won't come. Police, we don't trust you and stuff. You see, they made such comments.
Okay.
They made such comments.
Now the empty shells, did you take them from them?
They didn't give them to me.
You demanded them?
I demanded and they didn't give. So I just told them, the situation as it was, if you make any attempt to do something that will infuriate them, you rather escalate matters. You rather escalate matters. So in order not to further deepen what has already happened, you have to treat them softly. And basically that was what I did. Or if you don't listen to them, everybody is talking. As this one is engaging you, another person is also talking from all angles. So it's not easy. You have to listen to this person, listen to this person. The person is holding the pen. Bring it. He won't bring it. You can't.
Sincere apologies for that abrupt break there. But my colleague Joseph Akable has been monitoring the process. I'm talking about the sitting of the short commission since yesterday. He joins me in the studio, so we'll have a quick conversation about what's been happening and we'll put it all in perspective. Joseph, you're welcome to the show. Now, let's look at what today's sitting has reviewed, juxtaposing that with what happened yesterday. So there has been a very interesting trend about the number of gunshots. So yesterday we heard about 6 gunshots, according to the National Security Minister. We also heard a different figure from the director commander,
district commander,
the district commander for East Legon, who came today. And yesterday we played a video in which we counted about 49 gunshots within about 2 minutes. Yeah. Let's put all of that into perspective. Bring us up to speed.
So the first time the issue of the gunshots came up, the Minister of State, National Security Minister Kandapa, had said that when the SWAT team got to the residence, they were trying to get access, they couldn't. Then they heard one gunshot inside, then they fired 6 warning shots. So he was specific. For the Minister of State at the National Security, Brian, he mentioned the first shot that they heard inside, but he didn't put a number to the number of shots that his men fired. Okay. So in terms of the numbers, we had 6 outside and 1 inside. But today, in terms of the engagement, the district commander, DSP George Asari, told the commission that when he got to the scene, as the district commander who had been called in to investigate the matter, they first saw that there were some bullet perforations on some part of the building, and he counted about 4 of them. Now, aside from counting that 4, they also found many empty shells that were with some of the residents that had come around and were agitated. He was asked a specific question by Justice Short as to how many were those empty shells. He kept saying there were many of them. When he was asked to put a number to them, he said there were more than 20 shells, in which case it meant that the gunshots were more than the numbers that had come up in terms of the 6 and 1, that if you put together 7 that had come up from the National Security Minister yesterday. And
which is something that the video that yesterday we analyzed, the video from the location that we analyzed yesterday, sort of falls in line with this figure. Because if it's 20 plus, what we had was actually 40 plus. So of course you couldn't put a specific number to it. Okay, so let's move ahead from there. So there seem to be a lot of contradictions around the number of gunshots there. I'm not sure. Of course, we'll have to wait for this process to end and then take the verdict of the commission on it. But another issue also has been the cause of the violence. People have different versions of it. Yes,
in fact, the National Security Ministers said that the violence erupted because their men tried to gain access. They were not granted access. They had a gunshot inside. They retaliated with 6 shots, according to Kandapa.
And this is
outside.
The house, the residence of the parliamentary candidate.
The parliamentary candidate, and that is what caused the violence. So it was a gunshot inside and their inability to gain access that caused the violence. Now, the DSP says when he got to the site and started his initial investigation by interacting with those who were present as to why they were agitated, because these are residents that were unhappy about what was happening. And when he asked them that what had caused the gunshots that he had heard and what had caused the violence, he was told that the task force that arrived, the SWAT team, they tried to seize a motorbike belonging to one of the individuals who, we are told, came into the house. And this individual, he says, according to them, refused to give the motorbike to the task force. And that is what he says caused the violence. So in terms of the cause, what he gave the commission per his information when he started investigating the matter was also different from what we had heard from the 2 national security ministers when they came over to the commission yesterday. Okay, and when we finish this discussion, we'll put it all into perspective. We'll bring you yesterday's report from that sitting. But going on, moving on, Joseph, we also know that the EC, of course, the EC chairperson was there today. And this, what we've just discussed, is the DSP George Asari, who is the district police commander for East Legon Police. That was his version, and his version was really interesting. I mean, his time, and I'm wondering how the discussion or how the reactions in the room was like, because for those of us who were monitoring in the newsroom outside, it was a very interesting session. Yes, it was, especially what was going on in the room where the sitting was ongoing. He appears to he gave a lot of information to the commission, and from his interaction, there were concerns about why he had been left out of the deployment for the day, especially when the election was taking place in his area. And that was what he said. He had asked the Director General of Operations, Kwesi Fori, for the Greater Accra region as to why he was left out. And the response that he was given was that he shouldn't worry. That was what he said he got from it. Now he goes on to say that when the violence erupted, he was now called in, and he's the one, according to him, says, by the regional commander. By the regional commander. And when he went, he claims that it's as a result of his intervention that calmed down tempers at the place, because he was tactical. That is the exact word he used for the commission.
But then along the line, we saw the former IGP, subject him to some deep scrutiny.
Especially about the procedure when he realized that there were some individuals who were injured who were in his custody. So the question the former IGP kept asking him was, when the standard procedure is that you are required to give them a form to go to the hospital. But in this particular case, you did not do that immediately. You rather, once you interviewed them, you rather left to vote yourself. And it was at that point that Professor A.W.W. Mensah kept asking him whether he was trying to suggest that doing normal police duties was less important as compared to his mandate to vote, because he kept saying that he abandoned the interview, especially when it came up that two of the individuals had told him that they were actually present to protect the NDC polling agents. So they were more or less playing security function. So the question was, did he probe further to find out why they, as untrained men, they don't have the authority to carry out such security duties? Why were they carrying out that security duties?
And again, he went on to explain that the national security had indicated then that they were going to take over the investigation from there, which is why he decided to back down. But then again, the question came, which is what we put in our headline, that the commission believes that the commission, well, from the interrogation, seemed to believe that he shirked his responsibility at that moment when he left to go and vote instead of taking these people to hospital, which is standard practice, and also about how he managed the crime scene, which is what we brought you. But of course, as we go along, the conversations and the discussions and analysis will continue. But let's go to the EC chairperson.
Before then, in terms of the crime scene management, the shells, the more than 20 shells that we spoke about, the police were also unsuccessful at retrieving them from the residents.
Okay.
He said they tried to take it from them, they refused to give it to them. So it meant that the evidence that ordinarily the police should take over and hand to their forensics team to enable them ascertain where the shots were fired from, they didn't have access to this, and they still don't have access to those ones. Okay.
So we also know about the EC Commission chairperson who also appeared and said that the EC was not furnished with any operational information as to how this task force especially was going to operate on that day. Then we know about the EC's report and the CODEO's report that seems to have some contradictions as well. How did that go?
So the EC chairperson said once they received a report from CODEO, they engaged their presiding officer for that polling station where the incident is said to have happened. And that incident is about a national security officer who we are told allegedly assaulted a police officer at a polling station. The Electoral Commission chairperson says they've interviewed the 5 police officers who were stationed at the place, and none of them says they were assaulted. They kept saying that they simply had a disagreement, a verbal disagreement with the national security officers, but later the presiding officer says he was able to calm tempers down. So she actually tendered into evidence a list of the police officers at the polling station together with their contact numbers, so that if the commission feels that they want to engage them to verify the claims that she was making, they could also go ahead and carry out that verification as well.
Very well. But one of the actually the first person to appear is the Director General Operations, who spoke about one of the key things that actually dominated this discussion about the men in masks, the men in the vehicle branded SWAT police. He's also said that he had no idea who those people were, and he's also gone on to speak about the chain of command on that day.
Yes, so he said that on a given day, the IGP was the main man. From the IGP, it comes down to he as Director General in charge of operations, then it goes down to the regional command. And all the individuals, the agencies, all persons who were deployed on that day fell within this chain of command. When he was asked directly about the SWAT team, he said, 1, he doesn't know them, and 2, because they were not deployed to carry out electoral duties, it meant that they didn't fall within his ambit in terms of this chain of command that he had given. Then he was asked the question about whether he knew that there were officers, some of his men from the police service, who the National Security Minister had indicated had been seconded to that agency. So whether he knew them, he said he didn't know them because those men had been seconded to the National Security before he took over as the Director General in charge of operations. And secondly, because they had been seconded to that particular agency, it meant that they were under the leadership of the unit commander, whose name we are told is one Samuel Azu. So that is the name that has come up.
Azugu.
Yes, Azugu, yes. Azugu. That name has come up twice affairs from the National Security Minister and the Minister of State in charge of National Security, that he was the one who was the commander, the DSP in charge, leading the task force, the SWAT team that went out to try and allegedly retrieve the weapons, like we are told.
So that's his role on the ground on that day, but there has to be a higher command under which these men were operating. So far, that is the missing link in what we've heard from
So
the
far, yes.
those with the testimony. So Joseph A.W.W has been covering this for us, and the commission will begin sitting again on Monday. But we were told earlier that the IGP was going to
he actually, in fact, yesterday, just when the commission, before the commission wrapped up, he came into the room. He came together with DCOP George Mensah, and the information we had picked up from persons within suggested that those two individuals were to testify. But now it's not too clear whether with the Interior Minister testifying and Director General of Operations, whether still the IGP may be coming to testify. So that is still some information that we'll still try to get some confirmation for.
So as we get that confirmation for that that part of the conversation, you also need to know that so far there is still a key question that has not yet been answered. Under whose command were these gentlemen, masked men, operating? We know who was who was in charge of the operations on the ground. That is one DSP, Samuel Azugu. What we don't know is under whose command they were deployed to that place. And of course, these are questions that everybody wants answered. And the commission is sitting again on Monday at the same location. It starts at 8 a.m.
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
on Monday.
Starts at 10 a.m. And we'll be here. Joseph A.W.W will be on the ground for us. We'll be here to bring you all of those details. But it's been 2 interesting days so far since they started the sitting. Some have expressed hope that this sitting will bring some closure to the discussions and to the debate. But yesterday, Joseph A.W.W was there, and in this report, he highlights how the day went as far as the very first day of the commission sitting went. And Joseph, thank you very much for coming. But here is that report.
We will count on the cooperation of all and sundry for the ultimate objective of investigating the violence and related incidents surrounding the conduct of the elections on the 31st January 2019.
That was how the commission's hearing commenced. Justice Short appealing for support. Interior Minister Ambrose Derry was the first to testify. He distanced his ministry from the masked men seen during the by-election.
As normally is the case, when I get any report, the reports are either simply oral through the phone, sometimes photographs and videos. So when I got the video, I forwarded it to the IGP, and he says, these are not part of my men.
He further stated that police branded vehicle used by the masked men were not that of the police service.
He denied that that was not a police vehicle in use by the police. And he in fact told me, Minister, our vehicles have GP. What is the GP number? It is not our vehicle.
He wrapped up his testimony by assuring the commission his ministry was bent on dealing with political party vigilantism, which many analysts have blamed as the root cause of the violence that marred the election.
The prosecutor or lawyer, as you are saying, sentence the person, and all those are illegal and unacceptable, and they must be condemned. And we intend.
His colleague Albert Kandapa, who heads the National Security Ministry, was forthcoming with information about the masked men who were deployed on the day. He first indicated he ignored advice against testifying publicly, and then shared some details on why the SWAT team was deployed.
It had been approved. The operation itself had been approved by the Director of Operations at the National Security Secretariat. I'm told, Honorable Chairman, that for this operation, they acted based on intelligence report that there were weapons in a building within the constituency where the by-election was to take place.
He shared with the commission the briefing he had received from his men who caused the assault of Nigo Prampram MP Sam George.
A member of the SWAT team reminded him that, Honorable, you are causing fear and panic. It is not true that anybody died at that incident. We were there. You are causing fear and panic, and you should stop that. apparently, the Honorable Member of Parliament did not take kindly to that, went towards where the boy was standing, the operative was standing. The operative also bet him halfway, and I understand he was hit.
He was emphatic the operatives could not have been responsible for those who got injured on the day.
Later, they also said they heard gunshots coming from within the compound of the house. Our boys then gave some 6 warning shots, which they tell me did not hit anybody. But obviously, I await the end of the investigations to find out exactly what happened and how many shots they fired and whether it did hit somebody.
Minister of State in charge of National Security, Brian Achampo, who was the last to testify, told the commission the officer alleged to have assaulted the MP has since been excused from operational duties, with the security hierarchy availing him for possible interrogation by the police.
Let me also put on record, Madam, that I have instructed the Director of Operations to ensure that all the people, especially the one that was seen on video, to have reacted to the Honorable Member of Parliament to be removed from operation until and made available to the police. And yesterday, I, in my office, made sure that the commander of the unit, the CIDPP, came and took his statement. And I believe that if they deem it necessary to act on anything in the statement, including arresting the person that reacted to the minister, I believe the police will do so when they conclude their investigation. But that officer is available at any time to the police for questioning.
The Inspector General of Police and Director of Operations for Greater Accra are expected to testify before the committee on Friday.
Which is what happened today, and of course there will be more on Monday. As we go along, we'll be highlighting these matters arising as they do.